It is important that our voices be heard. It is important that we go in groups. It is important that we see as many people as we can to let them know our stories. Because when they hear our stories, they can be responsive. If they think we're gone, silence equals death. And we're not going to be silent. And that's one reason that we are thrilled that the very vocal Rita Mae Brown is the honorary chair of the Stonewall National Women's Fund. So we are going to engage in a conversation which will be recorded and end up on our digital archives and YouTube channel. So if there are people that you know that are not able to be here today, we will have it available so that they can catch it. The other reason we're doing it is because we want to do things that are special for people in our community. We want the lead on some of these projects to be by and for women. We are not a community unless we're all a part of that community. If we don't all play our roles, we are not a community. Just like if we don't hear everybody's story, we're not actually getting history. We're getting history that's been decided by someone else. Most of the history that we learn in the United States is biography. We learn about kings, and we learn about generals, and we learn about important people, and I put that in quotes. But in reality, if you don't know the people who made it possible for them to do what they do, it's not really the historic record. You have to know who facilitated, who made the arrangements behind the scenes. Those things all matter. And in our archive, what we try to do is to capture as many of those stories as possible. So those of you who have artifacts, records that date back to when you first came out or before, we are interested in your stories. Not everybody has to be Rita Mae Brown. Not everybody has to be somebody on the record. Every story is important, and every story has value, and every story is part of history. So, thank you again for coming and joining this Stonewall project, this Stonewall National Women's Fund project, and we will start. So, Ms. Rita Mae Brown, being that you have 80 years under your belt, 80 colorful years under your belt, you started basically in an orphanage. You were adopted by relatives. You became the #1 tennis player in Fort Lauderdale. But it's a tennis town, so that means something. Wow. You were mentored by Jimmy Everett, who also mentored his daughter, Chris. You were, at 17, and this I'd love to hear about. At 17, you went to Tallahassee, and you were the what governor for a day?
Does this work?
Yes.
Okay, I was youth governor for a day, and Florida had never done that. But all high schools, I'm sure your high school did it, you have the work day. The day when everybody, so I thought, well, damn it, I'm going to be governor. So I wrote the governor, Ferris Bryant, Democrat, and I said, you know, I'm from Fort Lauderdale High and it's our work day. I would like to be governor. And he writes back, and they took me. And Eastern Airlines was flying then, and I'd never been on an airplane. And they paid for me to come up. I mean, we didn't have any money. So I go up to Tallahassee, and I spent the day as governor. It was fabulous. It really was fabulous, because it was the first real look I had at elected officials and what they have to do and who they're responsible to. Because you're always talking to people, and everybody wants something from you. That's a given. And they were great to me. They were just great to me. And I was on TV, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I wasn't the least bit nervous. I think I was too dumb to be nervous. I was just having too good a time. It was really great. And I got all wrapped up in the stone crabs, because there was an issue about stone crabs. And anything that has to do with nature or agriculture always interests me first. So I came back, And I think my friends at Fort Lauderdale High were surprised because nobody was thinking of me in those terms. They were just thinking of me as a jock who took a lot of Latin, really. And it was fun. It was fun for all of us. This is an unusual state. You're in a strange state where most of the money comes from outside of the state, a lot of it. That's one of the reasons you don't have the taxes that others do. And if anything shakes that, you will suffer. And I think everybody from Florida knows that. Even then, we knew that. The citrus industry was critical. I think you're having a bad year, actually, this year. But agriculture is shifting in Florida, which will also shift your income, whatever. But what I learned about Florida, the other thing I learned was there are things about Florida that are very advanced. They took me to the state highway department. And remember, this is before drones and all this kind of stuff. And the roads at night are difficult. And this was the state that devised a white line on the edge of the roads so that you could see the road at night. I mean, we were the first to do it. And there was a big argument about it because this is going to cost too much money. And then the argument was, well, safety's worth the money, and so you have it. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I learned. It never changes. Same way.
So, in your tennis career and your friendship with Jimmy Everett, you got to know the family, but also Jimmy stood in, bless you, and helped you out after your father died.
Yes. The Everetts are wonderful people. I can't say enough about them. And I met them when Jimmy was at Southside, which was the only courts in this little town, which was 30,000 people. Had 3 high schools, that's what it was. And, well, Dillard High, Fort Lauderdale High, Stranahan, 4, Pinecrest. That was it. That's all we had. And Southside, I don't know if it's still there. They were hard clay. I mean, it was hard. It was hard. Those balls pick up the clay and your shoulder gets really tired. Well, that's all there was. And Jimmy kept saying, no, we need more courts. People are moving here. But it took him a while, but he finally got the course in Holiday Park. And we all shifted over there, which was great for me because I could walk to it. But my father died very unexpectedly between my junior and senior year. And you're a kid. You don't know what you're going through. You have no idea. You're just trying to get through one day and hope you don't have to deal with it, but you deal with it because it's always there. You know, like I would go home at night after tennis practice because I was on the team, and I would make coffee for Dad to come home after work, and then I realized Dad's never coming home from work. You know, it's the stuff. And they knew what I was going through. I didn't know what I was going through. And we had no money. Mom and I had $2,000 a year. That's what we had to live off of after Daddy died. It was pretty awful. And my mother's doing everything she can. God bless her. So Jimmy gave me jobs at the tennis court so I could help pay Mom's rent and that kind of stuff and help us get food. And of course he never said he was doing a kindness. He just did it. And I didn't realize until I was an adult what he did. You don't realize when you're a kid. And years later I was at the US Open because I wound up out on the tour for a couple years, not as a player, but as a punching bag. If you needed somebody to hit with you, I'd go do it. And Jimmy was there. Hey, Jimmy, I haven't seen you. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm playing polo. He was so impressed. He was so funny. And he said, you know, you were good. And I thought, if only you said that at a time, because I thought it was awful. You know, just awful. But I owe a great deal to the Everetts. A very good family, a very religious family. But back then in Fort Lauderdale, we knew one another. You know, people could help one another in more intimate ways. Now you probably do it through your friendship circles. But then your friendship circles were half of the people in a quarter of the town, you know. It was just different. But there are very good people here, and I mean, obviously, you're one of them. But if you want to meet kind people and help others, you can do it in Fort Lauderdale.
So, how did you know, and what triggered in you the desire to write?
Well, I told stories. Mama said they were lies.
That's why you write novels.
Yeah, that's right. So I started writing novels about her, by the way. I mean, I knew animals long before I knew language because I fox hunted in my mother's womb. So animals are the first thing to me. You know, that to me is real life. But then once I got language, and particularly when I got Latin, I realized this is fabulous. This is completely fabulous. And the great thing about the Latin and Greek, well, first of all, I should ask you, how many of you know a language other than English? All right. How many of you have learned you can say things in this other language that you can't say in English? Right. And vice versa. So it opened a door to me, and I realized I don't speak English. English speaks me. My brain is organized, and as I'm going along, I'm learning. And of course, Latin is 60% of the English language. So if you don't know Latin, you really don't know English, which is why I have an argument with the schools today. And I loved it, because to me it's music. I mean, when you get in that iambic pentameter or iambic hexameter, if you're doing the Latin, it's beautiful. And one of the people, not to name drop, but you know, we came up together, Toni Morrison. Toni was doing classics as a minor at Howard University, and of course I was doing it as a double major at NYU. And we met later because she was the one that got me my funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. God bless her. God bless her for helping me. She had no reason to help me. She was the only woman on the damn panel anyway. And the men threw my manuscript in the trash. And I heard later she pitched a goddamn fit. So I get my money. And I didn't meet her for a couple years later. We would think, oh, I bet you talked about feminism. I bet you talked about racism. Hell no, we talked about Thucydides. We were talking about Aeschylus. We were having the most fun in the life. And I said to her, Toni, I know where you're getting your storylines and you're modernizing. She said, yeah, but I know where you're getting yours. It was so much fun to talk to another writer who loved language. And she's changed our nation. I mean, that was one of the greatest writers we've ever produced. Her and Twain, I mean, we're new. We don't have depth of culture yet, or depth of the arts. We think we do because we're basically screwed up by the entertainment industry. We think that's art. No, it isn't. Let me tell you, it isn't. But they were true artists, and they truly changed the culture. And there are others. I mean, Alice Walker. Look at the color purple. It'll knock your socks off. My God. And as a gay person, it'll really knock your socks off. And I hope there's more and more of that. I hope there are more people, number one, who learn language and love language. And for God's sake, stop throwing F-bombs. That is just an indication that you have no imagination. If you're going to insult somebody, insult them personally. Make it utterly, completely original and vicious. Don't give them an F-bomb. But anyway, I mean, I'm babbling on, but it's a love. I mean, I would have to say, sure, the horses and the hounds come first, but it's a love, and I have learned so much about the human mind and what we can do here. Okay, you speak English. How many of you speak French? Beautiful language, part of it Latin. How come they can never govern themselves? Century after century, they have never really developed a very stable form of government. Is it the language? I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing this out because you're all sentient people, and surely you think of it. You know, and then you look at, you know, South Africa, which has, what, 7 recognized languages? How in the hell can you govern? I mean, think of these things. I mean, I'm sorry, but it just utterly fascinates me. You asked the wrong question, sorry.
I'm happy that I asked the wrong question because it certainly got a lot of laughs. But you also mentioned in your answer that entertainment is not art.
No.
And yet, you worked with 2 seminal figures in the entertainment industry, Roger Corman, who thought of himself as an artist, or at least a producer of art, and Norman Lear, who undoubtedly thought that he was a creative genius.
Well, they were creative, but television, I'm being real blunt, television dumbs everything down. I mean, I've got 2 Emmy nominations. It ain't great work, let me tell you. But for television, it was okay. And that the point is, when we had the 3 networks, it was a massive audience. So you did not use above a 6th grade vocabulary. That was just a given, you know. And the New York Times to this day is considered a good newspaper. 9th grade vocabulary. That's the best we can do here. I mean, pick up the Deutsche Zeitung if you want a really great vocabulary, those of you that read German. Or pick up the London Times. Okay, it's come down a bit because Murdoch has it, but that's really writing. I mean, that's really non-fictional writing. We're not really there, folks. We're not there. And our entertainment really borders on the vulgar. It's just a step above vaudeville. It's modern vaudeville. But a lot of that stuff can teach people. I mean, I'm happy to be part of it. I don't feel that I sank low. I felt that I reached a lot of people, and I learned how to do it. And I really thank Roger and Norman for that, who would fire me every Friday. We stayed friends up until he died just before his 102nd birthday. And about twice a year we talked to one another on the phone. But every Friday he'd fire me because I would tell him what I thought. Not non-confrontational. I'm Southern, remember, you know. But he didn't want to hear it, so he fired me. So I'd pack up my desk and I'd go. And then I'd get a call in the middle of something. Oh, did you finish that scene yet? And then I'd go back. I mean, it was funny. And we'd tease about it later. But I really would tell him what I thought because I wanted the best work. I wanted to, and he did fabulous work. Do any of you remember the one with Maude where it's her 50th birthday and all it is her facing the camera? For television, it was genius. Well, she was. I mean, she was, you know, she was a Marine. I don't know if you knew that about Maude. But they did great stuff. And Roger was an Oxford student. What is that? Rhodes. He was a Rhodes Scholar. No, Roger was incredibly intelligent, which is why his movies sold. He knew what people wanted.
He also was not afraid to test out new talent.
Not at all. George Lucas.
Ron Howard.
Yeah, the one that's really basically going to die, it looks like hell. The actor, The Shining.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, he found Jack Nicholson. Sorry to say that about Jack, but please stop drinking, sir. You know, what are you going to do? He picked out a lot of us, and I'm not sure why he picked out me, but, I mean, they banged on me because I'm Southern. I love the anecdote. You know, I love the trip down memory lane. You can't do that. You know, you've got, in those days, 90 minutes. No piece of work was longer than the human bladder. But I was lucky, and I'm proud to have done it. I'm proud to have perhaps made somebody think something new. I mean, that's what the Sneaky Pie books are. Anybody can read them. I mean, they are so simple. But there's always something in there you can learn if you want to. And I have had people just tear me apart for having animals speak. And I wanted to say, gee, did you ever read Aesop? Where do you think we started, honey? Sorry.
And Orwell.
Yeah, boy. You know, if you read 1984, there's something quite savage about it. I mean, he saw what was coming. But then again, so did Leviathan, which it's very difficult to read. But that was the economist, the great Leviathan, who was the first person to understand that we were consolidating power in such a way. He was alive during the reign of James I in England, and it was going to cost us dear. That you say you don't have rights under a monarchy. Well, you can really do what you want as long as nobody sees you. But this was all changing. And you read that. It's almost impossible to read. And it scares the shit out of you. Just like 1984 will scare the shit out of you.
So when you think about your books, and as you said, you hope that from your books that people get something and that they learn something. What is, if there is, a running message? You've written a lot of books. You have lots of interesting characters. Some are repeated, like Sneaky Pete, over and over again, and others are one-timers. What is it that's thematic through all your work?
I want you to trust yourself. Number one, if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to grow very much. You're going to be miserable. The older you live, the more miserable you're going to be. You're fine. You're just fine. You don't need somebody to tell you you're okay. You are okay. You came out of the womb exactly who you are. You came out of the womb with every talent you've got. And then your family and the period in which you live, your gender, your race, all of that affects it, can push some things down, pump other things, but you're just fine. You're just fine right now. Every one of you in this audience knows something the rest of us don't. Let us know.
And how do you bring that out in your materials?
Well, I think the animals in the sneaky pies see it better than the humans. And they can often comment when a human is missing something. And of course their senses are so much better than ours. I don't have to invent anything. I mean, they have to speak in English, but I don't have to invent anything. A foxhound's nose has 400,000 scent receptors. Yours has 10,000. Who do you think has a sense of reality? You're missing so much, I'm missing so much. They can smell time. My God, can you imagine that? We can't even imagine. Here I have my cat. You put my cat up against the old Redskins. What the hell are they called now? Doesn't matter what they're called, they aren't going to win. So you put him out there. My cat can blow past that halfback, and he's paid a couple of $1 million a year. Do you know how pathetic we are compared to other species? I mean, it just cracks me up, and I try to make that clear. But really, the major message is trust yourself, and then find other people that you trust. You're only going to learn to trust people if you tell them the truth. And if they tell you the truth. I understand you can't always tell your boss the truth. Remember, I got fired every Friday. But the only way we can make change is to know what we're up against. And if it's being covered up, as it was with Biden, you know, I think they knew in 2020 he was going. We failed. And look where we are now.
So let's take that and look at your career. You hitchhiked up to New York.
Yeah.
You got involved in the feminist movement, the LGBT, the lesbian movement, and in almost every instance, you were in places for relatively short periods of time before people said, "Go away!" Part of that was because you told the truth, and part of that is because you couldn't suffer people not telling the truth.
Yes.
So, with the Furies, you were there at the beginning, and you left.
No, they threw me out.
I know, but I wanted you to say it, not me. And then they folded shortly thereafter. So you added some value that they didn't appreciate. And then, of course, there's that wonderful relationship you had with Betty Friedan.
Oh, my God.
So why don't you share some of that?
First of all, I'm Southern. I've had cotillion. I started at age 7. I could pour tea for the Queen. I have good manners. I mean, at least I have good manners. I had good manners then. Let me tell you, it doesn't do a damn bit of good with a Yankee.
How many of you are Yankees?
I mean,
Just checking.
the joke is Northern manners and Southern efficiency. You know, that's when you've got real problems. And my partner said that to me today, and I go, by God, is that the truth? But I mean, I really was always well-mannered. And but I would say, what was what? And Betty was carrying on. Betty had to be the star. She had great needs to be the center of attention. She was brilliant. I mean, I kid you not. But what I always wondered about Betty is, how do you know she wasn't Yasser Arafat? Did you ever see them together? I mean, really. But I was the youngest person there. I was like 18. And they were all in their 30s and 40s, women who married and had children and did everything. I think she spoke very clearly to her generation. I think her book was important. But she couldn't share the podium with another woman. She absolutely could not. And when I kept raising the stakes about, look, you're treating gay women the way you say men treat women. I mean, she was ready to kill me. She called me a redneck. She called me everything that women from the South are called. I got it all. One time I finally had it, and I said, Betty, this redneck reads Greek and Latin. What the hell can you do? And that actually shut her up for a moment. But then, you know, she threw me out. And here's why I ultimately won, and why I cost her workforce. Don't throw me out. Let me put it this way. If you're going to be rid of me, do it in a proper manner. She did not. But I'll get you. I really will get you. And it'll be fun. It won't be ugly. It will actually be fun. So what I did was, behind her back, of course, because I couldn't be talking to her, I spoke to all the women that I knew were gay and were covering it up. And I said, you know, this is what she did to me. I have no money. I'm a student, and you have careers. But she'll cost you. She'll throw you out. If you are who you are, you're going to lose. Be careful. Well, they didn't listen for a year. And then one person got thrown out. Dolores Alexander. Pretty woman, good woman, smart woman. And then in the next year, another woman had a problem. They were gay, of course. And so here's why I ultimately won that battle. What Betty didn't realize, which I think most of you realize, is that almost every family has a gay person in it. They may not know, but they have a gay person in it. Betty blew it. And once enough people realized, oh, there really are some of us, maybe if we meet silently and, you know, whatever, we can get some things done. So she lost. I mean, she lost her workforce because the people that could work for her were the people that didn't have a husband or kids to take care of. So boom, down now goes, to the point where I used to call it now what? But anyway, I would do it all over again. I'll give her credit. Years later, we were at the Marin Community Center, which is very pretty, in a real rich part of California, and the place was packed, and it's Betty and I on the stage, and there was one other person, and forgive me, I don't know who it was. And Betty finally leaned over the moderator and said, you know, I was wrong about lesbians. She didn't say, I was wrong about you and I was ugly to you, Colin, but she said, I was wrong. That was enough.
Yeah.
I give her credit. She did it. But it was a different time. It was just a different, my God, if somebody black walked in the room, people would ask him to bring a tray. I mean, you can't believe how absurd it was.
So now tell us about the other part of that picture, Gloria Steinem.
Gloria's our North Star. She's much more liberal than I am, but she's true, she's honest, she's a reserved woman, she's a Smith graduate, so you know, she's smart. And I met Gloria when she was at CBS. She wasn't a feminist yet, so I always tease her, oh, you're a Johnny-come-lately. But when she came into the movement and understood it, all the cameras were on her because Gloria is beautiful. Beauty is power. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but beauty is power. Would you rather look at Tyrone Power, if you like old movies, or would you rather look at Charles Lawton? Doesn't matter if it's men or women. You're going to be obsessed. Anyway, she came, she was well-spoken, and she felt guilty about being beautiful. And I used to say, God, don't! Use it, use it, use it! They're showing that there are feminine, wonderful women who understand feminism. If it were me, what the hell would they say? You know, they say, oh, it's just another dyke. Or they're all dykes, or whatever, you know. And she has stayed true to her mission. She has stayed true to women all over the world. Anything for you. They're extraordinary. They're also beautiful. And then I have what we call appendix horses, thoroughbreds and quarter horses, which brings you the best of both, you hope. And then some quarter horses and one draft horse. The draft horses are really amazing because they've been raised to be docile because they're so big. And some of them were the war horses. But I'm really happiest when I'm with them. And most of my close friends are men and women that I've hunted with or played polo with. Because when you're in the hunt field, you can't think about anything else. You think about something else and you've just had an involuntary dismount. So you're alive in that moment. So you've actually become like the animals you're working with. You can only live in that moment. And it completely rejuvenates you. Think about the crap you think about every day. Okay, your bills, they're more, they're bigger. You just have to have a crown for your tooth. My God, what does it cost down here? What, $4,000? I don't know what it costs down here, but way too much. Your sister-in-law's been a pain in the ass. You know, whatever it is. Your mother's beginning to show signs of Alzheimer's, which is deeply disturbing. I mean, all of this stuff you think of, and you don't think of a thing when you're out there. You come back and you have the energy to deal with it. And, but a lot of what you think of is made up. You know, a fad of the moment, like the cholesterol scares, and then, I don't know what it is, but on your phone, I think of it as the death of the day. Whatever they're telling you, it's gonna kill you. Yeah, right, okay, fine. Sorry, but I just can't stand that stuff. Look, you're gonna die. Do it now, you're gonna be dead a long time. Sorry. I guess I'm fun, I'll tell you.
Okay, so there is an organization in South Florida called Our Fund, and they are hoping that people will die because that's how they get their money. But they do very, very good things with that money. And we at Stonewall have been a beneficiary many times over because people have gone to Our Fund and done their legacy planning.
No, that's a wonderful thing. At least you know you left something behind. I mean, you pay it forward. I mean, everyone in this room has helped somebody, and you have no idea you've helped them. And maybe you were born to put your hand on that kid's shoulder who's crying, who's your neighbor, you know, or your sister's daughter, and you just put your hand and shows, well, tell me about it. You know, it'll be okay. And maybe that was the real reason you were born, and you don't know it. But you saved that kid. You will never know what your kindness does for other people. Some you will, they'll tell you, your friends. But every day you have opportunities to help somebody. Even if it's just a smile, or you look at somebody and say, you know, you want some help with that flat tire? Hey.
So, as you know, we are a library, an archive, and a museum. What is it that made you, who were busy enough, say that you wanted to help us?
Oh, that was easy. I mean, that was so easy. If you go to Akron, Ohio, there's a big painting on the library there. It's one of my quotes. It said, "My life began the day I got my library card." And I believe it. And particularly for this library, women's lives, gay women's lives, it's not just coming out stories. We would like a mother who has children and one of them is gay and she's facing it. Maybe she writes about it. Or siblings and one is gay and the other's like, what the hell? It's not just you coming out. It's how it affects the family and the community, because it does. Nobody expects their children to be gay. And I think every gay person knows that. You are not what they thought they were getting. They may love you, but you were not what they thought they were getting. So it's a jolt. And some of them throw you out, and some of them don't. We want all of that. We want how this, quote, disobedience, quote, sin, because it certainly wasn't at other times in human history, what it has done. And here's another way to look at it. You're in this room. I'm assuming most of you are Americans, or you've become an American, and thank you for doing so. We've only been here since 1607. Dame Philippa Gregory wrote a book called Normal Women. She goes back to the Anglo-Saxon times and she has the information. She can tell you about gay women in 900 AD in England. And she does. She tells you about gay women, she tells you about straight women, she tells you about good marriages, she tells you, we can't do that. And also most of our people were illiterate. They were running here to save their asses over there. Or as times got later, to have a better life. But my people got here in 1622 because the one that got out was smart. He realized Cromwell was going to come to power, which he did, you know, years later. And he realized when Cromwell came to power, we'd be dead. So he got out. Didn't know a damn thing, didn't know anybody, new environment, they'd never seen the kind of animals we have. They had some, but these are our stories. And the women were just, I don't say they were dispensed with, they weren't important enough to write about. Martha Washington established what it is to be a first lady. Nobody had ever had to do this. She does it. Does she get any credit for it? No. Ron Chernow wrote the biography, he got it. But this is what I am praying for when I was asked to do this, is that we can get our history. Because we don't know where we're going if we don't know where we came from. And then you add the odd things of being enslaved, being owned, were you taken care of as good as the horses? You get these kind of things that we've had, or you're an Italian and people just, basically they treat you badly. You're Irish, no Irish need apply. All this kind of, what happened to the women? What happened if you were beautiful and you were Irish and you could marry a rich wasp? All this kind of stuff. What happens if you were beautiful and you were gay, but you knew the only way to save yourself and your family was to marry him? And you did. What's that story? We don't know who we are. And I think it's fabulous. My real hope and my belief, my total belief is, and I won't live to see the end of this, obviously, is that when we really get more and more, we will discover there were no weak women. Everyone did what they had to do to survive, and if they had children, they did what they had to do for the kids. So I have to say, when I hear young women complaining now about some of the stuff they're complaining with, like an eye roll harms them, we were talking about that earlier, that's damage to their emotions. I'm like, do you have any idea what your grandparents lived through? Your great-grandparents? Are you going to sit there and tell me if I don't use a pronoun you've been irreparably damaged? What in the hell is going on? How spoiled are you? And then on the other hand I say, we must have done something right that they can be this spoiled. And life will take care of the rest of it. It really will. But we're under no obligation to put up with this, folks.
So once again, what is the importance of a library?
Well,
You can drink first.
mother's milk. The importance of a library, whenever it is and wherever it is the lives of people are written down so you can access somebody that lived centuries before you did, and you can learn. Like when I pick up Aeschylus or Sophocles, you can say, why are you reading it? Because I'm learning. It was the 400 BC in Greek, and it says true today is the day they wrote it. The human animal hasn't changed. It's just like horses haven't changed. Neither have you. The clothing has changed. It was better earlier, obviously. But we're a pack animal, just like a pack of hounds. I want that to show up in the library so that people see, creating communities. There is always a certain element of exclusivity about it. Because you want people who look like you, or you want people who think like you. Well, we're trying to change that, but it's inbred. You're much more comfortable with people like you. We've made some progress, but can we really? It's like looking at men. Look, ladies, they're bigger and stronger in all the higher mammals. Why are they bigger and stronger? Because it's their biological function to protect and defend. It's not testosterone poisoning. That's why they are the way they are. And guess what? If one is in your life, you're damn lucky. Doesn't have to be your husband. But if there's a man in your life who takes care of you, who looks out for you in that manly way, you're lucky. But you have to look out for him. Because you see things he doesn't. I was talking about this earlier. And then I hope all this shows up in the library. Because it shows up in earlier libraries. I can go to the Library of Congress and get something that was not that they're going to let me hold it, but I have been to libraries and they've given me Washington's papers or Lafayette's papers, and I've been able to hold it and read it. I mean, it's an extraordinary event. I read a lot of Dolly's letters to her sister in Guilford, North Carolina, when I did the Dolly book. And some of them had tear marks on, and the letters she was writing her sister, because one of the sisters had died in Winchester, Virginia. Oh boy, does it get you. Where there's no difference between her and myself. I would be crying over my sister, and so would you. That's the power of these libraries, is that you can actually hold it, read it, learn. And I don't know, I was saying something, I got off the track, but about men and women. Okay, one of the powers or advantages of a heterosexual relationship is when he walks out the door, the world treats him differently. When you walk out the door as a woman, the world treats you differently. When you come home at night and you compare your days, you're learning about a world you don't know about. When you have 2 women or 2 men, you may have different experiences, but you're still treated as a man or you're still treated as a woman. So if you have really good men friends or brothers or sisters or whatever, you learn, because it isn't going to change. You cannot really change the human body. You are what you are. I mean, it's like all the fuss now about bodies. Yeah, you can change your body. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. It's your body. But most of us aren't going to do that. And we have to live with what we've been given. And then on top of all of that, you get old. And getting out of bed in the morning is an adventure. But it's what we are. And learning that and learning how people faced it makes you stronger, but it also makes you more understanding about yourself. My hunch about most of you in this room is you're hard on yourself. Don't. Do what you can with what you have. And I think most of you have probably done far more than you realize, or you're willing to give yourself credit for, because you keep thinking you have to be better. It's the Protestant ethic. Some things are good about it, some things are not so good about it. But really, whoever you are sitting in this audience, you're just fine. And I hope when you have... you can go to our library and find that out. Now, your children will tell you you're not just fine if you have to, but that works out. That gets, you know.
Yes, as children get older, they get more friendly.
Yes.
As those of us who have children will tell you that they go through that period where you can do nothing wrong, and then there's the period when you can do nothing right, and then there's a happy medium later on. If you were to write what you would know would be your last book, what is it that you would want to tell the people that you care about the most?
I think to love themselves, to love their friends, to love the United States of America. It's the greatest country in the world, and I don't give a damn what people say. It is the greatest country in the world.
Yes, indeed.
You know, think when your people got here. Think what your people went through, and here you are. You can get an itch. Are we going through a rough patch? You bet we are, but just be glad Buchanan isn't president, because it would be worse. I mean, we've been through worse. We may have to go through worse, but we'll fix it. But what I want to tell you is love yourself, love others, and if you have a religious bent, I hope you will love God. And if you're Catholic, I hope you pay attention to the Blessed Virgin Mother. I don't hunt without my rosary beads. I pay a lot of attention to the Blessed Virgin Mother. Hail Mary, full of grace, blessed art thou amongst women. Save my ass out here. Again, free up all that energy that you have tied up in this idea of what you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do. I'm not saying it's all wrong. I think your parents did the best they could probably with what they had. But some of you grew up with alcoholic parents or problems, you know, and that weighs heavily upon you. And if you can divest yourself of it and free your energy up, number one, you'll be a lot happier. But do you have any idea what you'll accomplish? I mean, you can do anything. If you set your mind to it, you can do anything. I mean, who would have ever thought Chrissy Everett would win Wimbledon? Because men would watch her play tennis and think she had no power. She had enough power. But if you put a dime on the court, she could hit it. She'd make mincemeat out of you. She believed. I mean, you believe, just believe. You'll do it. Let it go. Let all that crap go.
So have you been able to do that?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I started it. But I never had it. I mean, I think being in the orphanage and getting adopted the way I did freed me of trying to please anybody. I mean, I don't mean I was ugly. But I was being told over and over again I was worthless because I was illegitimate. And our people don't do that. Anyway, and I just thought, I'm fine. First of all, I'm smarter than they are. I mean, I always had that little touch of arrogance. Like, I'm smarter than you, and you're 30, and I'm 7. But I mean, I always had this belief in myself. And I was always smart enough to find people that were kind. And my dad was very kind. Mom was in her own way. I mean, Mother was demanding in her own way, too. Because Mother wanted a very feminine woman, and clearly I have failed miserably. But I was just always on my own. Plus, I had the animals. And animals are smart. I mean, as long as I knew they were with me, I knew I was okay and I could keep learning. But I don't think most people have that. Most people are very dominated by the people around them. Makes sense to me. I just didn't have that family. Nobody cared enough about me, really, to try to dominate me. Plus, I think they finally figured out they couldn't. But let me put it this way. The family is the transmission belt of pathology. Do you think about it? Now, there are great things about it, there are bad things about it. But whatever it is, you soaked it up. Well, however you are now, dump it. Just dump it.
So aspire to
be who you really are. Because you come into this world with gifts. And your gifts are important to everybody in this room, to everybody in this state. You may not think so, but they're important. And if you don't fulfill that, you're cheating yourself. And you're cheating others. Now, once again, that's sort of a Protestant outlook, like you should work to help others. But even if you don't work to help others, if you just work to have a good time. I mean, as my mother said, oh, honey, you know, we're not here for a long time, but we're here for a good time. Well, hey, let the good times roll. Go for it.
So on that note, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? Okay, here we go. Just say your name.
Anne Rosoli. I was just wondering that in Ruby Fruit Jungle,
I can't hear you.
Speak real close.
and in Ruby Fruit Jungle,
Yes.
the story in the airplane in Holiday Park,
Yes.
that was real?
Yes. I mean, I wasn't having sex with anyone, but the airplane was real. I mean, everybody thinks I had all the sex, but I didn't. I mean, you know what? If I look at somebody who's sexually attractive, my first thought is, how much is this going to cost me? Sorry, but I'm being honest.
Okay, here we go.
Hello, it's a pleasure to hear your story. Oh my goodness. And I'm still cracking up at the nurturer statement where you said, if it's a nurturer in the room, they're probably going to slit your throat. What I love about you is, and this is more common than the question, is that, you know, you've really found ways to find the humor in things that might have like put other people in a space where they didn't want to be here. And so I always say, if you don't laugh, you cry. And so you've done that so brilliantly. And thank you. I didn't know much about your story, and I was rushing to get here, and I'm so happy that I made it here because you really touched me.
Oh, thank you. I should clarify how much it's going to cost me.
Now that will cost you.
No, because when I broke down those doors, there was nobody. There was absolutely nobody that would be seen with me. Or would he, I mean, if they date me, it would be in the middle of the night and then nobody would see them. I'm not going to do that. I like myself too much for that. So I had no opportunities. And then when I got to the point where it was more okay to be gay, all of my people or my generation were linked up. And you know, a nice young lady from Smith or Amherst or whatever, they're not going to look at me by that time because I'm old to them. I'm in my 40s, you know. And I finally now have a partner, and I think the only reason this poor woman can tolerate me, God bless her, is that she's in New York. She doesn't have to put up with me, you know? Because she's younger. She was part of that generation that has this fabulous gay life. Her friends are incredible. I can't imagine having that kind of social life. My friends are all horse people. But I look at you all, and there are ways I envy you, because in a way, you have what I worked for. It's okay that I didn't get it, but you had it. You can be who you are. You found your partners, some of you, and some of you found the wrong one, and you learned what you need. I mean, think about it. Failure is feedback for success. How else do you learn? But anyway.
Hi, I'm Julio. It's such an honor to be here with you, and I've learned so much from you over the years. When I first read Ruby Fruit Jungle, it meant so much to me in graduate school. But before Ruby Fruit, before Lavender Menace, wanted to me one of the most inspiring part of your stories is your time in Gainesville. When you and I was wondering if you could tell, since we're here in Florida, things are happening in Florida. If you could tell us about your time there. I mean, the Johns Committee to integration.
Oh, the Charlie Johns Committee. People were dying. Do you all know about the Charlie Johns Committee? No. Okay. Well, it was. I think it was the late 50s. I could be wrong. The very, very early 60s. And a guy called Charlie Johns, who was in the State House in Tallahassee. They should have shut the doors for him, but at any rate, he started this thing, and of course there have always been MAGA people. Don't kid yourself that it's only now. About, these people are going to ruin your kids. You know, there's homosexuals at the University of Florida. There's homosexuals, blah, 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 in your high schools. They're going to seduce your children. He scared the shit out of people, and they killed themselves. I mean, professors at University of Florida, they killed themselves. Well, I came to college shortly after that. And it just hung like a pall. And what you all don't know about University of Florida is at that time, it had the largest, back to library, had the largest library of any college in the United States. I mean, there's some really great things about University of Florida, which it doesn't get credit for. But I realized things were sort of shifting, and I was engaged. My fiance was my mixed doubles partner, first from high school and then from college. He was 2 years older. And I loved him to death. I mean, I really did love him to death. And we stayed close until he died of it's complicated, I won't go into it, but he died young. He died at 42. And we stayed together, but somewhere along the line we realized we were a brother and sister who had just slept together, but we weren't really, that thing. And he said, I said, gee, maybe I'm gay. And here we are in Gainesville, Florida. What's going to happen to us? And he said, we just get engaged and everybody will know. And so then he had his affairs. But it was a terrible time. And what I found out that it will never really make it public, although there's a Professor David Chalmers. By the way, when I got to that school, they selected 50 of us from the freshman class based on our IQ scores and our scores at school, and we were in a special class, like an advanced class, and I was one of those 50s. I test well. It doesn't really mean I'm smart. It means I test well. But I was there, and David Chalmers was our politics professor. Loved him. Oh my God, how lucky was I to be taught by that man. And he was beginning to figure out what we had figured out, because Jerry, my fiance, and I were understanding, and again, they'll never cop to this, that the poor side of town, where the black folks lived, were owned by people in the high administration at University of Florida. And if those people didn't pay their rent, they took the damn doors off the front of the buildings in February. They didn't care. So here these people are trapped, and these other people are making money. Well, then what they do, never ever underestimate people's ability to scramble. So then they decided, federal funding. They had just changed federal funding. You had to have people that were all not white. So they decided, well, we can cover this up. We'll take 7 black kids. So they did. They took 7 black kids, and they stuck them in one end of Broward Hall. And we weren't supposed to have anything to do with them. It was horrible. And there were 2 handsome, handsome young men, the Carmeling twins. Their father was a preacher. And there were like 4 of us thinking we're going to change this. Boy, were we. Well, we were kids. We didn't know any better. We actually thought we could do something. And I was a scholarship student, so they took my scholarship. So I'm done. I mean, I'm out of there. But they put the Harmelings in the 8th floor of the J. Hillis Miller Center at University of Florida, which was the nut ward. That's how we thought of it. And one of them hung himself. You know? But, I mean, and we were kids. We don't know. But we're not kids now. We aren't. And we can make sure this crap gets slowed down. We're never going to stop it totally. But we can slow it down. And to make those 7 kids live in one end of Broward, and we couldn't talk to them. And those of us that were on the sports teams couldn't talk to them either. I remember once saying to the tennis coach, don't you think they're better than we are? Didn't get me very far. But Florida is a state with a really twisted history. Think of what we did to the Seminoles. Have we signed the peace? When I was young, we still hadn't signed the peace with the Seminoles. I mean, every state has a twisted history, don't get me wrong, but Florida is really unique. I think part of it's the weather.
Well, Florida had more lynchings than any other state. Lynchings. It was the lynching capital of the United States.
More sundown towns than any other state.
Yep, no, Florida is unique, and North Florida was particularly unique because for a long time nobody was in the southern part of the state until they brought trains and all of that kind of stuff in. But North Florida is the deep south.
Oh my God. I mean, the other thing about Florida was they always said our schools were bad. They really weren't. I mean, Fort Lauderdale High was a good school. Stranahan was a good. If you wanted to learn, you could learn. Now, I don't know what it's like now, because I went to old Fort Lauderdale, when it was the beautiful Spanish buildings. Oh God, they should have never torn that down. Think of the housing that would make today, the rich housing, all that space. But we had really good teachers. And you came up to the marker, you got thrown out. I don't know what it was like in your high school, but they just failed your ass.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hello, I'm Susan, and you are my idol. You are definitely in the top 5 women that have been the most instrumental in my life. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very grateful. Came from Daytona.
Thank you.
So I came from Daytona to hear you and to attend women's group. So I would wonder, could you tell me the top 5 books that are your favorite books? Your top
The top 5 books for me?
favorite books?
Okay, not plays, books.
Correct.
Okay. Thucydides' book about the Peloponnesian War. It's called the Peloponnesian War. Everything in there is happening today. Everything in there. And some of the things he fires off are really funny. Like, people make something more than it is so they can look important when they solve it. Oh boy, we know that one. But, and I liked reading it in the original. It was difficult Greek. It wasn't easy Greek, like Plato's easy. Any of you could learn to read Plato in 6 months, you really could. But, so I would say that. I would say Marguerite Yourcenar's Memoirs of Hadrian, which I didn't know what to do when I finished it. Because I had never, ever read anything like that. And Leviathan, I mean, I don't know if you just want fiction or nonfiction, but Leviathan affected me greatly. It was, like I said, it was hell to read, but I read it and I got it. I really got it. And the other book, well, anything by Winston Churchill. He wrote the most beautiful nonfiction in our language, exceeded only by Edward Gibbon. Gibbon's first, with The Fall of Rome, that's the most magisterial prose in our language. and then comes Winston Churchill. And it always cracked me up when people say Obama was a good speaker. Not to distract from Mr. Obama, but have you ever heard Winston Churchill? Have you ever really heard our language in the mouth of somebody who loves our language and knows how to use it, and also knows Latin and Greek? So I would say that. And the last one I would have to say would be Huckleberry Finn, because that is the first book in our language, in our idiom. Up until that time, everything we wrote, it was about America, like James Fenimore Cooper, who was extraordinary, really, when you think of how he started, and he was the first. But it was European in its organization and outlook. It was Twain that changed it. Twain wrote the way we speak. And now he's punished for it because of the way people spoke then, including the black folks. He said exactly what he heard. So now he's a racist. I think he's just somebody reporting on what he heard, you know? And the other thing about Huckleberry Finn is when I read it, I realized right away that the moral center of the book was the slave, Jim. How did he get away with it? How in the hell did he get away with that at the time at which he wrote it? But, you know, when you read it, and the moment where it hits you is we're on the river, and remember Huck leaves, and Jim doesn't know what's happened, and he's panicked, and Huck finally comes back, and Jim looks at him and tells him he's wrong. He's wrong. An enslaved person is telling a white boy he's wrong. Oh, boy, was that a big one. And I'm like, this is why you're right. This is really why you're right. So you can do that over and over again in different ways. The Color Purple, she did that. Beloved, she did that. I mean, it just, books change your life. People's stories, which again is why we're doing this library. People's stories change your life. You're not alone.
I'm sure you remember Sagaris Feminist Institute.
Yeah.
I was there. And I just want to tell you how Rita really shook everybody up. You were so outrageous. There was like a fundraising night and you did a striptease. You remember?
Yeah.
I was this serious middle class Boston College going feminist. And a striptease. How could that be feminist, right? But I learned. You were fabulous. Really shook us up. And that was really one of the best educational parts of that summer in Vermont.
I thank you. I'm sure most of you are pretty young to remember how deadly humorless the women's movement was. Oh my God, it was just shocking. I mean, I would do anything to be in the company of gay men because I knew I'd have a great laugh. And they were fun. The girls were not fun. The girls were serious. The girls cared. And I'm like, Jesus H. Christ on a raft. Can't anybody just cut a shine? As Mama would say, cut a shine. But I think those days are wrong. Are over anyway. Are we over?
We are almost over, so one more.
I think we're blabbing on, and I think you all are being very lovely sitting there.
Last one.
Okay.
Hi Rita, my name is Piper Mahoney. I'm here with my girlfriend Amanda. I made her come with me. I recently read your book, Ruby Fruit Jungle, and it was so fantastic. As soon as I saw that you were here speaking, I had to come. As a young female writer, I'm applying to a bunch of MFA programs in creative writing across the country, and I was just wondering if you had any advice for someone who's trying to get her foot in the door in that world.
Yeah, get out of the academy. You'll never learn to write in the academy. I'm not kidding. I mean, you'll learn to write like other academicians, but that's not necessarily literature. And the other thing is every writing department and every college in America is the weak sister because the rest of the English department look down on them. Well, of course, they can't write. That's one of the reasons. But it's different. Plus, you know what a bestseller in academia is? 10,000 books. You need to sell millions. I'm not kidding. You need to sell millions. And you're not necessarily going to make any money. Trust me. It's chicken one day and feathers the next. The arts are difficult. But you got to reach people. Reaching a bunch of people who want to examine Yeats's use of the semicolon is not the way. I mean, get out and live. Get the shit kicked out of you. Break your heart. Learn about this. That's what literature is. It's not sitting in a safe place, writing. It's about drama. It's about death. It's about loss and sorrow and unbelievable joy. You're not going to get that in an English department either. But of course, now there are these writing schools, and there's writing schools for, TV and all this and that. As I think I told you, I have 2 Emmy nominations. And I did pretty good in TV. I liked it a lot, actually. But in one night, you can reach more people than the biggest bestseller you ever had. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So if you want to be one of those elite people who gets invited to give an address at one of the Ivy Leagues or 7, fine. I mean, I hope I get invited. I certainly won't. But here's the other thing. Think about it. Let me get back up here. I don't mean to push you all behind me, but I can't hear some of the speaking. You can be a fabulous musician at 12. Think of Mozart and his sister. You can be a painter, starting to really show yourself early. You cannot really write big work until you're in your middle years. You have got to live. You've got to be hurt. I mean, it's the only way you're going to do it. Look at what happened to Thucydides. He lost his command because he lost a battle, and he gave us one of the greatest works in Western culture. And the same with Twain. Twain had lost a lot by the time he wrote Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. I mean, he scrambled. He didn't come from hunger, but I mean, look at the great work. Look at what Tony went through. And then in some ways it got worse later. Every time she walked into a room, she was supposed to represent every black person in America. How the hell can you do that to somebody? You know, it's just, so just live, and just be prepared that you're going to weep, you're going to be on the floor, pick yourself up and start over. You'll be okay, ultimately. I mean, I know I'm blabbing on, but I mean, we're going to leave, but I do want to leave you with another one of my mother's encouragements. Honey, make hell with what you have.
So, on behalf of Stonewall, thank you to Rita Mae Brown for being here with us. We will have many, many more Stonewall National Women's programs in the future, and hopefully you will consider joining us. You can talk to Monique about becoming a member of the Women's Fund, or supporting Stonewall, or at least joining the library, because as you heard, the library and the archives are vitally important to your future as well as ours. So thank you for being here. Thank you, and we'll see you all hopefully in Virginia this fall.